Hey, it's Royal Ruby. I bet you missed me. Well, I'm in my sticks and bricks and I'm working on Thanksgiving. So one thing that's been in my family for many, many years, and it's been a tradition, is the way we do stuffing. Okay, so it's a little different than the way most people do stuffing. And the reason why is it has potato in it. It has about a 5-pound bag of potatoes. You cut those up like you would for mashed potatoes. You quarter them. It has this bread in it, which I'm cutting up now. Now I'm using a sourdough bread, and I'm just cutting it lengthwise like this. You can see me cutting it lengthwise. And then you just want to cut it into little cubes. And I usually use 2 loaves of the artisan. You can get this at any of your grocers. I got these size loaves. You can buy these at your grocers. I paid $3.99 a loaf. So they have gone up in price, guys. This stupid inflation crap. It's really affecting our turkey Thanksgiving meals. I just popped in the oven a delicious sugar-free, flour-free pumpkin pie. And that recipe is really easy also. It's made with a walnut crust, and you do use cream cheese in the recipe with some puree pumpkin, organic pumpkin. I use the organic pumpkin. You can buy it at any grocery store. I always buy organic. But you're only going to use 1/3 of a cup of this. So you'll have all this left over to make like pumpkin cookies or whatever else you have on your menu for Thanksgiving Day. What I do is I prep the day before Thanksgiving. I do my stuffing, I do my desserts, I do everything the day before. And then I just, pop it in the oven, or you can even put your some of the stuff you can bake the day before, like the pie. I'm baking it now. So that's gonna be ready for tomorrow, and I won't have to do anything with it except add the Cool Whip. Just cutting this up. You know what, guys? I don't know if I need all this bread. I'm getting a lot of bread here. I think this is gonna be enough, this 1 loaf, and I'll save the other loaf for Thanksgiving Day. So what I usually do is I take about a 5-pound bag of potatoes. I usually use the gold potato. It doesn't matter which potato you use, but I prefer the gold or the white. So you're just gonna peel these potatoes. So I'm gonna do this a while, guys. I'm gonna rinse them with cold water, and then you're gonna cube them, and then you're gonna put them in a pot, and you're gonna parboil. For now, I'm just cutting them in half one way, and then this way. That's how my mother always did it. Okay, welcome back. The potatoes are done. They're parboiled. Like I told you guys, you want to parboil them. And you can see the size of the potato. And you're going to dice that a little smaller. They're still kind of hot to handle, so I'm letting them cool off. My pie just came out of the oven. I'll show that to you. That's the Danette May delicious pumpkin pie recipe that I told you about. And I can leave the recipe below for you. Now I just sauteed my celery. I took my celery and my onion and I just put it in the food processor. So it's pretty fine. You can see it's pretty fine. I used 1 onion, just a regular white onion, and the shorter ribs of celery, the hearts or whatever. I think I used about 8 of those. You just dump that in. While your potatoes are cooling, I'm just gonna add this to your bread, and it's kind of hot, so you don't want to put your hands in there yet. But this kind of softens the bread and, makes it, and then of course salt and pepper. And again, this is something after you add the eggs, you can't taste it anymore. But until you add the egg, you're going to be able to test your salt. Remember I told you guys I used about a teaspoon of poultry seasoning. should have used a half a teaspoon of poultry seasoning. It's going to be pretty strong ingredient. But it does have a lot of sage and all these really savory flavors in the poultry seasoning, which is what I like about my mom's stuffing. It's just really, really good. But that's the only spice other than parsley that you put in, you know, so I guess that's okay to use a teaspoon. It's turning that pretty color that stuffing is, you know, it's starting to look like stuffing because you have your salt and, oh, it smells heavenly. There's that celery and that, oh, it smells wonderful. That is gonna be good. So I'm just gonna try to lay some of these potatoes in here. Okay, so I'm back to the recipe here. I decided I want a little more butter. Like I said, you learn as you go with this recipe because it's a feel. That's why you use your hands. So this was in the refrigerator, so I'm gonna have to soften this a little bit. You want to get that butter flavor in your stuffing because that makes it good. My mom, I think, used to use a stick of butter in her stuffing. I don't think I'm going to use quite a stick of butter because I don't have as much. She used to make a lot more. Like I said, she filled that fix and mix bowl with stuffing. So now we're going to taste it again. Salt is good. I may have too much salt. Mix it a little more. So I'm just taking about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of parsley. I'm chopping it up. Okay, so that's good. We dump that in. Now you're gonna add your egg, and now you're done tasting. You're done tasting. Okay, so now you're adding your egg. And you got your parsley in there. And you're gonna get a more juicier, you know, more liquidy. And the egg turns it this pretty gold color. Really is nice. I'm gonna take some organic chicken broth. Just dump a little of that in there. You don't need a lot. And then you take your hands back in and you work that in. Yeah, it's perfect. Okay, so now you got all that worked into it. It's nice and moist. Now you're gonna cover it with saran wrap and you're gonna put it in the refrigerator and just let it get happy. And you wanna cover it completely, so, because you don't want any smells from the refrigerator to get into your stuffing. You want it to retain all of its own stuff. Well, that's ready. So that's gonna go in the oven tomorrow at 350 for about an hour and a half. That'll be baked. Okay guys, now we're moving on to recipe number 3. I know you guys didn't get to see me make the Butternut May pumpkin pie. So maybe I'll make that for you another time. But I bought some butternut squash. I was telling you guys I already bought 48 ounces of it, and I won't need it all because I only need a pound for this recipe. So I'm gonna freeze the rest of it. And I just spread it out into a baking pan. What's nice about buying squash like this is you don't have to, you know, cook the squash in the oven, roast it, and you don't have to cut it up. The next thing that you're supposed to do here with this recipe is you take your Brussels sprouts, and I won't be using all these either. And you're gonna cut these in half. So I'm gonna roll out, this says this is about 2 pounds. So I'm gonna use about half of these. I'm gonna cut them all in half. Like They're like little cabbages. And then the recipe calls for olive oil, and you just drizzle it with olive oil and salt and pepper basically, and a little bit of thyme, a little bit of rosemary, and you roast them. And then you put a Dijon vinaigrette over them when they're out of the oven. So this way I have a head start on this recipe. Hey guys, I got my butternut squash with Brussels sprouts ready to go into the oven. I'm gonna roast these at 450 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. And I'm making these ahead of time. So that's another recipe you can do ahead of time. Tomorrow, all you have to do is put the oven at 350 and reheat them for about 15 minutes. And you'll have your roasted vegetables ready to go. The only difference is you will not do the dressing, which is a Dijon vinaigrette dressing, until you're ready to serve. The day before Thanksgiving, I've been in the kitchen since 8 o'clock. I got my dessert done, stuffing's ready to go, and now my roasted vegetables. And after this, we're doing sweet potatoes. So stay tuned, guys. When I bring them out of the oven, I'll show you how beautiful and caramelized they are. Okay, so a couple things I want to show you guys. I just took the butternut squash and Brussels sprouts out of the oven. They cooked at 450 for about 25 to 30 minutes. Drizzled them with olive oil, salt, and pepper. That's all you use. Roast them. And then the next day, when you go to prepare your meal, you just take them out of the refrigerator just the way they are. I'll just put foil right over this and pop them right after they cool off, right into the fridge. So tomorrow, when it's time to eat, I just pop them in the oven. I add the cranberries, and I put them in at 350 for about 15 minutes. And then we pour the Dijon vinaigrette dressing over them and serve them. So that's done. These are my sweet potatoes. I sliced them all up into 1/2-inch discs, and I have 1 potato left over, so that'll be dinner tonight. Yeah. So now we're gonna make the juice on the stove that goes over top of these, and then that'll go in the refrigerator, and that'll be ready for tomorrow to just pop in the oven. So we just took the mixture off the stove. This is the base for the sweet potatoes. So basically what I did for this is first you want to put the coconut sugar. I think I used about 2/3 of a cup of coconut sugar, about 1/2 cup of maple syrup. First I put about 4 tablespoons of butter, and then I melted that, and then I added the 1/2 cup of maple syrup, 2/3 of a cup of coconut sugar, a little bit of vanilla at the very end, and some nutmeg and some cinnamon. About a teaspoon of cinnamon, about a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. So you get like this mixture. You let it boil, and then you bring it to a boil and let it boil for about a minute, and then you just take it off the stove, and you take your sweet potatoes. You just take it, you just pour it all over the sweet potatoes. And if you want to, you can kind of cover some of them that didn't get a lot of it. Because as they bake, you can go in and you can baste the ones that don't have any sweetness on them. And then tomorrow, all you gotta do is take them out of the fridge, throw them in the oven for about 30 minutes at about 350. Bake them, then you cover them with foil, and then you take the foil off and you put them back in the oven for about another 30 minutes with the cover removed, and bake them for another 30 minutes. And then you have your recipe. And then you just want to garnish them with some rosemary, and I usually use a little bit of pumpkin pie spice on the top of them, and some rosemary, and I forget what else I put on them, but they're really, really good. These are really tasty, and they're very super, super healthy. So that's my sweet potato recipe, guys. And you're doing it all ahead of time, so tomorrow when you get up to do your baking, everything's already done. All you gotta do is bake it, which makes your life so much easier. Okay, here we are back in the kitchen. I just took Teddy for a run because he was getting a little restless. We haven't been out of this kitchen all day. My eyes are burning from the onions and I just needed a break. So I got out of the kitchen. It's nice to prepare everything in advance, you know, but it does require the day before Thanksgiving for at least a half a day to dedicate to working in the kitchen. And then you're going to take the rest of the half a day to clean up the kitchen because it's going to be a mess. So right now I'm working on the cranberry relish, and I just used an 11-ounce bag of fresh cranberries. I added a 3/4 cup of orange juice, and I'm just using Simply Orange. I used 3/4 cup of that, and then I did a 1/2 cup of honey. You could also use a 1/2 cup of maple syrup. That's all you do. You just put it in the pot and you start to cook it over medium heat. And as the cranberries start to pop, they will start to pop as they cook. You'll hear them popping, it's so cool. And you just let them cook down in their natural juice. You want to stay by the stove because they cook pretty fast. And you're going to let them cook for about 13 minutes, like that. So I'm going to set the timer. 13 minutes. Just let them cook. Don't disturb them, but you want to stay close by because you do have honey in there, so that's a sweetener. So you want to keep an eye on your pot. Just keep gently stirring them. And then what's nice about this recipe, it's only 3 ingredients. If you want to add other stuff to it, like a cinnamon stick, maybe some cloves, after the recipe's finished, you can do that if you want to. I pretty much just put it on the table as is. You just get this out of the fridge the next day for Thanksgiving, serve it cold on the table with the turkey, and it's really easy to make. So I used a 1/4 cup of the cranberries. They're in my dehydrator right now. I have them dehydrating. My Breville does have a dehydrating function. It takes a couple hours to do it. But I'm dehydrating a 1/4 cup of cranberries to add to my Brussels sprouts and butternut sausage, or butternut squash. So that's going to get added to that tomorrow, the last 5 minutes of baking time. And that just adds a little sweetness to the whole roasted vegetable dish. So that's going to be tasty. So yeah, we'll be back in a few minutes and you'll get to see my cranberry sauce all finished. Okay guys, here is our cranberry sauce. As you can see, it's thickened up. And it's a pretty color. Now tomorrow it'll be a little thicker, but we're gonna let it cool off and then we're gonna refrigerate it. And all this is an 11-ounce bag of cranberries. You throw them on the stove with a 3/4 cup of orange juice and a 1/2 cup of honey or maple syrup. Now if you don't want it as tart, you can always add a little bit of extra sweetener. Tomorrow morning, after it absorbs into the cranberries, I'll try it again. And I may or may not add a little cranberry or a little maple syrup to it, or a little honey. But it has a good flavor, and I think we're good. So there you have it. Cranberry sauce, homemade. Okay, I'm back, and this is the last part of what I do for my preparation for Thanksgiving Day. I get Tom out, I wash him real good, I pat him a little bit, say hello, get to know him, because pretty soon I'm going to be eating him. Anyway, I got a young turkey this year. That's what I prefer because they're usually more tender and they're not as dry as turkey is a very lean meat. So what I do is I make a compound butter. This is a Gordon Ramsay recipe. And basically it's 2 pounds of softened butter, 2 lemons with the juice of the lemons and the zest of the lemons. Obviously you zest the lemon first before you juice it because otherwise you can't really zest a lemon in half. And then you take some fresh parsley, 3 cloves of garlic, and you mince it. And you can see there's still some juice in the bottom there. And you take this compound butter And first you want to get up underneath the turkey and you want to loosen all the skin at the breast area. I've already done that. And then you take your compound butter with your hand and you just start putting it inside of here. Inside on that turkey breast. Because what that's going to do is going to keep your turkey from getting dry. Because that's the biggest complaint people have with turkey meat, is it's so dry. So you want to get all, I know it looks gross, guys, but that's what you do. And then you want to do the whole outside of the turkey with some of this as well. And then you're going to stick it in the refrigerator and it's going to get all happy in the refrigerator. So you're going to lay that on top of there like that. Slather it on there any way you can. Now you have to do the inside of the turkey as well. So obviously I'm going to have to wash the salt and pepper shaker when I'm done. But you're going to go in there and salt your cavity, pepper your cavity, rub that around in there a little bit. Then you're going to stick a whole onion up inside there, one on each side. And the lemons that you used for your, you know, they don't have anything in them anymore, but I mean, you definitely stick your lemons up in there. And then you take a little bit of some bay leaves and stick them up in there. Which I'm gonna have to wash my hands because to get to the and that just gives it a real earthy kind of a flavor. So you take some of these bay leaves, get a couple big ones, and you just take your bay leaves and just kind of push them up in there along the sides. That one broke up a little bit. You don't have to be perfect about this. You're doing this just for flavor. Put those bay leaves up in there. Okay. And you had salt and pepper already on in this mixture. So, but I always take and put more salt and pepper over the turkey. I do a little more because I just think it tastes better. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna truss this bad boy like that. And you're gonna truss the turkey. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go up underneath of him. Get his wings, and then you want to kind of pull it around so that it's the same length. Get his wings in there. And you come up around his legs. Gonna go up underneath his legs. Like so. There we go. And you're gonna go around. One time. Okay, so now you got his legs nice and high. His wings are tucked into his body. That's how I do it. So now you got your turkey all trussed. You can see he's sitting here all nice. Now you want to take the rest of your lemon butter, whatever you got left over, and rub him all down wherever he doesn't go. Open a pack of smoked bacon. And trust me guys, I never eat bacon. I usually eat turkey bacon, but because it's Thanksgiving And you take these strips of bacon and lay them across your turkey. And I usually use about 6 strips. Okay? So that's also going to give him added flavor. Now you could take a cheesecloth and dip it in wine, white wine, and butter, and you could drape that over your turkey. That's another way that you can roast the turkey. I'm not going to do it that way because I'm going to be using this bacon in my dressing. So nothing is wasted. I think that's enough. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so you got that on there. So now what you do is you stick him in the refrigerator and you let him sit in there overnight. Tomorrow you get him out, you take the oven up to about 425 and you pop him in there for about 10 minutes. And then you take him out. He should have some color, some caramelization, some browning on him, even in that 10 minutes because you had it up to 425. Then you see if you can, get a little juice out of there and baste it a little bit. Then you put him back in at 350 for 2.5 hours. So basically your meat temperature is going to be about 160 degrees inside the meat if you have a thermometer. That's perfect temperature for turkey to be cooked. So this turkey is a Gordon Ramsay recipe, and he is like one of the leading chefs in the world. This is his recipe. So now our turkey is ready to go in tomorrow when we wake up. We just stick him in. And that's the first thing I do when I get up, is I do my turkey right away, because this has to rest for the same amount of time that it bakes. So if it's going to bake for 2.5 hours or 3 hours, it rests for 3 hours. So you want this guy to come out of the oven and sit somewhere warm in the kitchen and just rest. And then all those flavors are going to go down into the meat. And besides, you don't have to serve your turkey hot, because your gravy that you put on it is going to be hot. So thanks guys for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving and enjoy your holiday and just have fun with your family. That's what this is all about. God bless you. Have a great Thanksgiving.